Hello, lovely people. How you doing? Okay, a post was made last year by, I can't remember his first name, but I remember the last name is Moses. And I'm going to share that post with you here. I want you to read it, assimilate, understand, and then I'll get back to you. So you read the post, right? On the surface, it sounds mature. It sounds balanced even. It sounds even fair. But the problem with that argument is simple. It confuses equal action with equal consequence. Life doesn't work like that. Nature doesn't work like that. And reality most certainly doesn't work like that. Before I go any further, let me be very clear, because some of you like to mishear things. I am not saying cheating is good. I am not saying promiscuity is noble. I am neither saying men should be reckless. What I am saying is that the same action can carry very different risks depending on biology, background, and responsibility. Let's start with something simple. No emotions, just biology. A man sleeps with 10 women and a woman sleeps with 10 men. The same action, right? Now let us introduce reality. If that woman gets pregnant, what happens? Tell me, what happens? Almost immediately, there is uncertainty. Who is the father? Now you're dealing with DNA tests, accusation, emotional chaos, denial, legal problems, and financial instability. This isn't society being cruel. This is basic reproductive biology that has cascaded into these things. A woman carries a child for 9 months. The maternity of the child is certain. Now she carry her. She's the mother. But the paternity is not. Unless exclusivity exists. Now, let's flip it. A man sleeps with 10 women, and those women are not sleeping around, and they all get pregnant. Is there any confusion? Is anybody waiting for DNA results to know who the father is? The responsibility is crystal clear. The same action, different biological risks. Sure, you can see it. Okay, let's make it more uncomfortable. If that woman was receiving financial or emotional support from multiple men, the pregnancy will collapse that entire structure. At best, one man will remain. At worst, all of them will disappear. If the DNA doesn't match the man that she has assumed was the father, what happens next? She now has to go back one by one to the other 9 men. That is not morality. That's consequences. Now let's talk about psychology, because that is where some people get emotional. For decades, psychologists and neuroscientists have observed that men and women bond differently through intimacy. Women release higher levels of oxytocin during sex, the same hormone involved in what? Childbirth, trust, and emotional bonding. Now, repeated short-term sexual bonds, especially when emotions are involved, they can weaken long-term attachments. On the average, it's not being I say it, it's psychology that says it. That does not mean that every woman is the same. It simply means that behavior, repetitive behavior, conditions your brain. And no, men are not immune. Promiscuous men often struggle with impulse control, loyalty, and long-term discipline. Weak men are a problem too. But pretending that the effects are identical is not equality. It's madness. It's denial. It's delusion. Let me give you another analogy, but without the agenda. 2 men, different backgrounds. One comes from a rich home, the other comes from a poor home. They are both given 5 million naira. Both take the same action. they squander the money. But here is the difference. The poor man's father sold the last family land to raise that money. That money was not just capital, it was hope. The rich man's father, on the other hand, didn't sell anything. The money barely touched him. The same action, but who will life punish more? The poor man. Of course. Not because life is unfair, but because the cost of failure is higher when your margin for error is smaller. This is where people miss the point. Men and women can take the same action, but they are not starting from the same biological or social position. Women carry higher reproductive risk. Men carry higher social and legal risks. That's why men receive harsher criminal sentences. That's why men are assumed dangerous. That's why men are expected to prove innocence. So you can't demand equal judgment in one area while ignoring unequal judgment everywhere else. See, the goal is not to shame women. The goal is not even to excuse men either. The goal is to understand reality. You don't create a better society by pretending differences don't exist. You create a worse one. Nature doesn't care about hashtags. Biology doesn't care about feelings. And psychology doesn't change because a post went viral. Actions have consequences, and those consequences are not evenly distributed. That is not injustice. That is just life. Remember that nobody has a monopoly of wisdom and or stupidity. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Be cool. Don't go about saying things that sound emotionally okay, but when it comes to reality, it cannot work. Kachineke Mezioku.